So you're tired of shooting your bow with all the gadgets on there? Well, you know what? We might have the answer for you. Here on the special episode 100 of Archer Talk 101, I'm going to be your host today. My name is Roy Canterbury, and we have a special guest on the line with us that is going to tell us just why you want to go simple and get rid of all the hassles of all the wheels and the releases and all the stuff that go along with the compound bows. We have on the line with us here, Tom. How about if you introduce yourself and tell us a little something about yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Hundley. I am one of the co-founders of TT2 Archery. We are just a small group here in the Metro Detroit area that focuses strictly on traditional archery and preserving the tradition and heritage of traditional archery. TT2 got started back in, I think, 2015. Myself and one of my friends were setting in a pop-up blind in the woods in northern Michigan with two compound bows, and decided that we wanted to try to do something different. So that's how it got started. We started out with, I think, 4 bows between the two of us, and now we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 or something like that. But traditional archery to me is going back to the simplicity of archery. It's a stick and a string. It's you versus whatever you're going to shoot. So I shot competition archery for a while, and back in the day, and I just fell out of love with it. So traditional archery was my way to get back into it.
So if they were interested in contacting TT2 Archery, how would they do that?
So we do have a Facebook page. It's at TT2 Archery, or we do also have an email. It's tt2archery@gmail.com.
Okay, that way that if they want to get a hold of you, and they can contact you and get some information. And so you're in Detroit area then, is where you're located.
Yes, sir.
So anybody in that area, hey, this is a group to go check out. I'm sure you guys like to help new archers out, or those going to get into the traditional archery. And
it's one of the coolest things about traditional archery is like a big family. You can go to a rendezvous anywhere in the Midwest, and it's like all your brothers that you haven't seen in forever. You may have never even met the person, but they're always super willing to help you get set up, help you make the right decisions when you're purchasing a bow, which is what it's all about. If you have the wrong equipment, you instantaneously hate the sport, never want to do it. So it's one of the fun parts of it is I've been fortunate enough to purchase a lot of bows over the years, and I share those with whoever wants to come and learn. So it's kind of our thing is we just try to help promote the sport. We don't really sell anything or manufacture anything. It's just about promoting the sport.
yeah, that's always good, help the new archers out. And hence that's why I called the podcast Archer Talk 101, because it's all out about helping the archers out, whether you're just starting out or you're an advanced shooter. There's always help, and there's always somebody out there that can help you. And like it's a worldwide sport, and you use the a definition I use for archery, stick and string. My definition of an archer is a stick and a string flinging another stick. And if it's archery, it fits in that category. I don't care if you're shooting a longbow, recurve, any of the other different styles of traditional type bows, compounds, crossbows. They all fit in that category. Some might have wheels on it and some don't. Some have sights on them, some don't. And the traditional archery, you can use them with sights, without sights. It's just one of those things that, hey,
I'm a true instinctive traditional archer, no sights. I shoot with fingers and a glove. I don't aim. It's like throwing a baseball. You just pick your spot and let her rip.
Yeah, and that's how I learned to do it, was just pick the spot and just shoot. Eventually you're going to learn how to do that. And
Practice.
and practice some more. And now there's all kinds of different things like they call it string walking, where you're moving your hands up and down the string, and I,
I've tried that with not a lot of success.
yeah, and then there's okay, using the tip of the arrow as a reference. Like if I'm going to look at the tip, I'm going to put a sight on it.
Right. Very true.
That's just me. I just and when I get my recurve in my hand, I'm shooting instinctively. I don't look for sights. That's why I have my recurve set up for bow fishing. So you don't have time to pick a sight. When you're bow fishing, it appears, you shoot, and it's gone. It could be 2 seconds from sea to gone. So you don't have time to do anything. You have time to draw back, get to anchor point, and pull through. That's about all you have time for. I get a compound in my hand, and now I'm looking for sights, anchor point, but all that stuff in there. And I can't shoot them fast. Like there's just no way, because my mental attitude is different depending on which weapon I pick up.
Right. I picked up my compound bow for the first time in about 10 years and never changed the setup. It was literally in the case. I grabbed a couple arrows. I shot 3 arrows with fingers and 3 arrows with my release and put it back in the case and said, well, I've done that now. It was just like riding a bike. I put 3 arrows in the 10 ring out of 6. I was good.
Yeah.
I'm not that good with my trad bows, that's for sure.
Yeah. I know when I first got my first compound, I was shooting fingers because, I grew up in the 60s. There was no compound bows when I started. There was only recurves, long bows. You had your choice of wood or fiberglass. That was it. And you shot fingers, wood arrows. So I got my compound. I shot that for a while until I had to get another one, and it was a little bit shorter. And next thing you know, my ring finger's going numb. So I had to go to release. And then that's a whole new world that you got to get into. And, being nice and simple. I use the glove. I never really liked tab because it held my fingers together. I like the flexibility of the glove.
I'm a glove guy. I have tabs too, but my preference is actually a glove.
Now on my recurve, I have what they call the no gloves. Using bow fishing, I don't want the leather on my hand, so I just have those on there, and I don't need anything on my fingers. It just rolls off my fingers, and makes it a little bit easier. So, what made you get started in archery?
I remember when I was probably 12 to 13 years old, my dad and one of his friends and his son decided we were going to go on a hunting trip. And we went to Jackson, Michigan, over very close to Ted Nugent's place. And my dad gave me this little bear whitetail bow and some arrows with field points on them. I'd never hunted before ever, other than maybe a squirrel hunt or rabbit hunt with a shotgun. That was, maybe 10 or 11. And I walked into the woods we went to an apple orchard actually. And I walked in about 6 rows of trees or so, and there were like 15 deer there, and I was hooked. Of course, I got field points, a bow I've never shot before. It was terrible, but I didn't even actually shoot. But as soon as I saw those deer and I was that close, I was good to go.
Yeah, when you get that close to the animal, and it's something a little different than with the gun, where a lot of firearm shooters, I've asked them, have you shot a deer under 100 yards? And most of them say no. Like, well, as an archer, we're not even getting excited yet. I'm not even close to being in range.
I tell people I don't even shoot at them unless I can see the snot frozen in their nose.
Yeah. With the recurve, you do have a little bit less range than you do with a compound, but
right.
It's just a matter of practice. And, I haven't hunted with my recurve yet, just because I don't want to spend the time to get good enough to take the recurve out.
We actually hunt by Kenny, the co-founder of TT2. We actually hunt from the ground, usually in a ground blind. A lot of times with no blind, we'll just go out. He's got a place in central Michigan that we go to often, and we just kind of meander out there and find a spot, sit down.
Oh, that's the nice thing about archery is you can go pretty much anywhere, and you can get on a lot of properties that you can't get with a firearm. Because it's a lot safer, and you're not going to accidentally shoot something you don't want. And when you have that rifle in your hand, you've got to be aware of what's on the other side, because they don't stop. Where arrow, you don't have quite the range.
Very true.
If you're shooting a deer and you're on the ground, it's not going to go that far past it before it actually hits the ground, especially after it goes through the deer.
Right. Exactly.
So what's been your most memorable hunt you've been on?
We first started TT2 probably around when we started in 2015. We decided in this one particular piece of property that we wanted to figure out how to make the deer come to us. And we spent a lot of that fall and the next spring and summer working towards that. And one evening, Kenny and I were both sitting in a ground blind 40 yards behind the cabin, and we had 5 deer and 30 turkeys that we could reach out and pet all of them. So that was, and we never shot, but just getting them in that close and actually succeeding in what we were trying to do was pretty.
Yeah, to get them in that close, that was definitely a challenge.
The turkey were actually brushing their wings across the side of the blind. When they would walk by, their heads would pop up. You could reach out and grab.
Oh, that is close.
One of the coolest things we've done at TT2, we have a little boy in our city that had cancer, and we got the archery community to actually donate a bow to him, and he made it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, was he able to get out and get himself a deer or a turkey or something? Or
he's 12 years old, and I gave him his first lesson last summer.
Cool. Yeah, it's always nice when you have the equipment that you can help somebody out like that.
Yeah, we reached out to a bunch of different people, and Canterbury from the Northwest, Trad Al Bows, actually made him a custom built bow, sent it to Michigan.
But that's good. There's you get a lot of that in the community, don't you? So a lot of people reaching out and helping out in any way they can. And
the folks from New Woods Bows helped out. We had a lady in Pennsylvania that she used to make sleeves and all that kind of stuff. His favorite superhero was Spider-Man, so she made him a Spider-Man case for his bow. I fletched him up some Superman and Aquaman arrows. It was really cool.
Sounds like it's a lot of fun, doing that kind of stuff. It's something a little different than making regular arrows.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. We went and picked up all the materials and kind of thought through the process, knew who his favorite superheroes were. So we tried to make it something, because none of his family hunt, so none of them are into archery. So we wanted to see if he liked it. So we were able to get him over here. First shot was in a dice morel target, and he put it right in the tip on his first arrow. So it was super exciting.
Oh yeah, that gets them hooked, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it was hot that day, and they were here for a couple of hours, so it was really
fun. Hot day and shooting that well. Yeah, it's like it gets you hooked, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
it's probably my highest point so far.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like something that would be, inspiration. And the reason why you do this is when you get something like that, you can see how well they enjoy it. And as an instructor, I've been an arch instructor since '95. And, when you get somebody out there that has never shot before and they're leery of shooting, and they take that first shot and it's like, oh, this is fun. Can I do it again?
Oh, yeah.
The answer is always it's yes. You want to do it some more? Let's do it some more. Let's do it some more. It's that first shot that just it's just so exciting that they're afraid of it. And then, some are afraid of it, some are just, leery because they've never done it before. And then that first shot goes off and it's like, whoa, this is cool.
They're hooked. I had one of my dad's friends owned an archery shop here in Taylor, and I would go there and help. I worked midnights at my real job, so I would go help out during the day there. And it ended up that I was there 5 days a week. Um, it just I couldn't stop. It was just what I wanted to do. So I would go there in the mornings and help out, get everything ready for the day, go home, take a nap. And he had during the winter, he would actually have 5 nights worth of leagues. So Monday night was traditional archery night, Tuesday night was women's night. It was kind of like helped out with the range on Tuesday nights. Wednesday and Thursday were men's unlimited, so I shot both of those. And then Friday was the kids leagues, and I helped out with all the little kids. It was really fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and something to do in the wintertime to keep the sport going. And archery stores in the wintertime, yeah, don't seem to do real well sometimes because everybody's out hunting. You aren't buying new equipment. That's you have to worry about the 3D shooting season. That's when you can start getting up in the summer and just before hunting season. Everybody comes in, wants arrows.
Right.
2 weeks before hunting season, or needs their bow worked on, and open it up and it's like, my string's broke. Bring it in and say, is it normal if the string break? You open up the case, there's broadheads sitting in the case. Yep. You have
Yep.
broadheads in the case. Every time they're going to break, you had a broadhead exposed in your case. And I keep broadheads in my case all the time, but it's inside the quiver, so they're not going to cut anything.
Exactly.
And
I'll never forget we had a guy that showed up and he came into the shop and he had taken his bow to work and put it in the trunk in a case. And he, you have to see this. We go out there and the quarter panel has this giant bash coming outwards. And one of the bus cables let loose and the limb just let her rip, went right through the case, smashed the quarter panel of the car. The bow's still in the case, stuffed out the end of it. It was just like, well, I guess we can sell you a new bow because I don't think there's much fixing that.
yeah, you're going to need new limbs and new cams for sure, and new strings and cables. But the only thing good left is the riser, because he replaced one limb, he had to replace them both. So do you make your own strings then for your bows, or do you have someone else get them?
I do make all my own strings. I make some for friends as well. Still not an expert at it. They're getting better, but I do try to make all my own strings. Currently, I use B55, your standard traditional material, and then I use halo serving. Just seems to be a lot more durable. We shoot an awful lot, so the halo serving it lasts a really good long time.
Yeah, that halo serving is good. I've been making strings for, well, since 2001. when I got my store, I learned how to make strings, and I've made them ever since. And for the recurves, the normal string I use is 8125 for compounds, but I got the B50 that I use for the recurve stuff, and that B55 is also another good string for recurves. And I use a little bit of the halo because it's nice. It has different colors and it's a nice thick serving and seems to hold up really well.
It does hold up like to knockware because for whatever reason, mine always seem to be kind of tight. It did actually last for a really long time. I don't think I've reserved a string that I've made yet using it.
Yeah, the normal serving material is pretty good, but that halo is just it's completely different material. It's kind of unique in the way they've
I
made
used
it.
to use the cotton cloth, white and black braided stuff. I don't even remember what it was called back in the day, but I like the halo a lot better.
I think like a diamond braid or something. There's the white and black, and there's also a couple other colors as well that you can get for them. I use that a lot for the compounds just because it needs to be a little thinner. Don't need to be quite stand up to the hitting the arm guard and stuff like that. That your recurves need to stand up for that. On a compound, you only need enough serving to put the knock on. You don't need any more than that because you're not going to be hitting your arm or anything else anyway. So you don't need all that information, all that extra stuff, like on the recurves, we normally find the center point, go 3 inches up and 6 inches down. And, because you got to accommodate for the glove and the arm guard and everything else, because you do have a tendency to hit your arm guard a little bit more. I hold mine like I do my compounds, so I don't hit my arm like, you normally would, because I hold a little bit different angles like I do my compounds. So I
kind of
don't.
usually hit my arm as if I'm tired, if I've overexerted myself or shot too much. Although
Yeah.
D-style longbows, I still struggle with those. I beat my arm up pretty good usually when I shoot them.
Yeah. So
They're hill style bow. I have a hard time shooting. They're really fun and they're awesome bows, but I have a hard time shooting. So
yeah, what would you recommend for somebody just starting out? How would you go about sizing a bow for them?
So what I tell everyone, I have lots of people that want to come try, and I guess the best advice I can give you is find somebody like myself or that has a decent selection of bows where you can go try everything. Um, the other part of that is that you shoot with your body, not your ego. So don't over ego your draw weight. You can kill a deer with a 40-pound bow just as easily as you can kill a deer with a 62 and a half pound. It's one thing that will make you hate the sport more than anything is if you overbow yourself and it's a struggle every time you shoot. It just doesn't make it enjoyable and you're not going to do it as often. Try to tell everybody to start out with a bow that is a little bit less than what you think you're going to need, and then work yourself up into that custom made, multiple $1,000 bow after you know, you've gotten into it and know what you like and you know what your ideal poundage is, and then go out there and have someone build you that custom.
Yeah, I've seen people pull them back to recurve and they can't even get their fingers back to their mouth. It's like your thumb. They come back and their fingers are still 3 or 4 inches in front of their mouth. And it's like, get a little bit lighter bow because you can't pull that one. You need to come back to a good anchor point. It's not a consistent anchor point. And I've seen people do that. And of course, some of them shoot really well, but it's just start off with something light, you can always go up later.
In my training wheel bow, I shot it at 77 pounds. I would never try to shoot a recurve at 77.
Oh,
And my ideal weight for a recurve is somewhere between, I have bows from 15 pounds all the way up to 55 pounds. But my ideal weight is somewhere in that 40 to 50 range. I have a really long draw length. I just put together a new Bear A-Mag bow this past weekend that I just purchased. And I had a set of 52-pound limbs on an A-riser. And I have a 29 and 3/4 inch draw length. I shoot that bow at 62 and a half pounds. And that's plenty for me.
yeah. Yeah, no let up on them.
It's fast, and that thing flings a 640 grain arrow like there is no tomorrow. But you get tired really quick. But I'm hoping that I can build myself up. That's the bow I think I'm on. Although, as you can see, I have a variety of selection.
Yeah, and for those listening, yeah, you look behind him and he's got what, about 15, 20 bows hanging up behind him.
I think there's 17 back there right now. But
yeah, it makes a really nice looking backstop. All the bows and arrows hanging up.
I figured it'd make a nice backstop.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see all those different bows, and looks like a lot of them are Bear.
Yeah, I'm a kind of a collector, not as avid as a lot of people, but I do have several Bear bows. I think the oldest one I have is a 1953 or 1954 Fuller. And then I have a 50th anniversary takedown bow. And then the same mag that I just got. It's actually a model year 23, so I have everything in between. For Michigan, it's got to be a bear.
Well, yeah, yeah, it gotta be a bear. I know some of the bow manufacturers will actually custom make them, and I know when I had my store, I was a Martin dealer as well, and for the recurves, and we had the guy come in, and as he wanted this bow, so we ordered it and says, well, we need it to fit somebody with a medium-sized hand, and so they custom made the grip to fit him, and it got up and it's like perfect fit. It's some of the manufacturers will do that and some won't, but it
That was
just so
one of my
happened.
first compound bows with a Martin Warthog. I actually still have it.
Yeah, some of the compounds, really not much you can do. The grip's not like what you like. You can take it off and that's about it. And for me, I prefer the skinnier ones because in my hand more relaxed. Always it's forced it open. And then, when I, normally point my index finger basically to my target and it's real fat, then I end up pointing it off at an angle. And so I never really liked the big fat grips. I always liked the skinnier grips because it relaxed my hand more.
Yeah, I think you
And
get a lot of. I think depending on your hand size, I think you can get a lot of bow torque with a larger grip bow, just by the way you hold your hand, and you don't even really realize. I have two customs that I. One of them I bought myself for my 50th birthday from Canada Customs, and that bow fits me perfectly. And the funny part is that he already had the bow built, and I met him at a show, and the rest is history. I wrote the check and brought it home. But and then I have one that I actually picked out the wood for, and that's one of the cool things is that traditional bows are like artwork. Um,
yeah,
if you get the right bowyer and you can ask them to do just about anything for you. And with the new technology, with them stabilizing wood and using pearls and all different kinds of things, and epoxy stabilize the actual lumber, they'll last forever. And they can do some really, really cool stuff.
yeah, just whatever combination you want, because a lot of them are laminated anyway, so it really doesn't matter what kind of wood's in them as long as they're at least somewhat compatible. And you don't want something that is really soft and something really hard because that may not work very well. But um, they're just it's just something about the wood bows that they have their own little character in there. Where compound, you have this brand of compound, they all look the same. The camel pattern all looks the same. And with wood, no two bows look the same because that each piece of wood is unique in itself, and that's what's so nice about
There
having
are
those.
some, there are some guys out there that are artisans in making bows and the things that they can do. There's a man from Australia that makes bows, and he does like intricate inlays of. Just did one with some turtles and some iguanas and stuff. That it's actually every piece is a different piece of wood inlaid in the riser. They're just phenomenal. I hit him up on his Facebook page and asked him, um, you know, how long did it take you to make that? This one particular bow that he just finished a couple of months ago, it 800 man hours.
Yeah, and if you get something like that, you're not worried about the cost because it's unique. There is no two alike.
And
Because
that
he's
was
probably not gonna.
that was
Yeah,
his first bow, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
that was cool. Yeah, that would be cool. So do you normally use wood arrows? Or you use carbon or a little both, or what are you using?
I shoot aluminum, wood, and carbon. It really depends on the bow and what I'm doing with it. Um, Here lately, I've kind of gotten into a kick at building my own carbons or building my own wood arrows. I recently purchased all of the stuff to do my own spine testing, um, do all my own tapering, all that kind of stuff. So um, I've been off on a tangent of building wood arrows here lately. I think over the winter I built like 8 or 10 dozen. So I really like it and enjoy it. It kind of helps me relax and unwind after a stressful day at my real job, so I can just set it up and do that. It's pretty fun, actually. Kind of that other part of that whole creative thing. You can make them any way you want, make them look how you want. If
Yeah,
you don't like
that's
it, you can sand it off and start over.
yeah, that's the nice thing about the wood arrows. You know, you have so many options, you know, putting different patterns in them and you know, laminating pieces together. And of course you have to worry about your spining when you're gluing all these other pieces in there, but you know, they've got some good strong glues that are going to hold up just fine. Like, you know, a lot of times on a wood,
I
the
haven't
glue joint's
tried
stronger than the wood.
Yeah, I haven't tried to do any footed arrows yet. That's the next on my plan probably for this winter is to try that. But I enjoy it. Right now I'm messing around with this new AMAG riser bow, so I'm kind of going between some traditional looking carbon arrows and some aluminum arrows, and then I'll probably build a set of woodies for that bow at some point before hunting season gets here and get them all dialed into. But right now, just getting to know the bow and shoot it. I didn't want to take the time to build a new set of arrows, so I found some that spined out pretty good and they actually shoot pretty straight. So I've been using those just to get the bow dialed in, and then I'll probably build a set for that particular.
That's what's nice about archery is you can personalize it all you want. And I know with the carbon arrows, I still shoot feathers. I shoot 4-inch feathers. I've shot 4-inch feathers for decades. I don't plan on changing. Um, you know, I started with feathers and wood arrows in the 60s, and I'm still shooting feathers. You know, I'm not going to change. I just like feathers. You know, there's a lot of advantages, disadvantages, but uh, for me, there's, you know, I've had old podcasts, you know, talking about advantage of fletching with feathers and veins and all that. And, you know, mostly it's just a personal preference. What do you like? And now, you know, for your traditional archers, they've got some veins that are actually designed to be shot with recurves because they're a little softer, so they'll bend out of the way. You know, where the hard, you know, normal veins don't really bend out of the way, and you get some really weird flight that way. And
Yeah, one of the other guys from TT2, Carl, he actually bought some and we tried them out, messed around with them for a while. Pretty interesting to shoot them after shooting feathers for so long.
how'd they turn out? Were they as advertised or a
They
little
were
bit of
okay.
hype?
But we ended up refletching them with
Went back to feathers.
went back to feathers. I mean, the aero technology these days, we shoot a lot of the gold tip traditional arrows, the gold tip brand traditional only arrows. And amazingly enough, those things are
I,
super forgiving.
I,
And you
I
can hit
have one right
something
here.
nice.
It's carbon arrow, but it looks like wood. Can't really
Yep.
tell too well in with the camera with the background in there, but it's a wood grain. That's what my son shoots out of his.
Those arrows are super forgiving. I mean, you can hit something pretty hard with them. They'll stay straight and not break. Where if back in the 90s, when you owned your shop and when I was at Arrowhead, you hit something hard with a Easton Carbon Arrow or one of the other manufacturers. We had 3/4 inch, doubled up 3/4 inch plywood backstops behind all of the targets, and then we had Celsior bales for the indoor range. And if you got one that went awry and ended up in that plywood, that arrow was usually toast. Where today, my son was out shooting with me the other day, first time he's shot probably 2 or 3 years, and he stuck one in a 4x4 and it came right out.
Yeah, I know the first carbons, they were laid out differently. They were laid out, the fibers were linear from the tip to the knot for a straight line. So when they broke, they just exploded in a whole bunch of little carbon fibers. And when those come out, it's like, no, I refuse to shoot carbons until they started coming out, you know, a little better carbons. And you know, I had my store in 2001. Of course, I was a PSC dealer, and of course, I used the PSC arrows. I
Right.
still have PSC arrows that I shoot, and they were a tough shaft. I was shooting getting ready for hunting season, I had my broadhead target out at the range because they won't shoot in a regular backstop because it just tears them up. And I was tired. I shouldn't have been doing it, but I did it anyway. And I missed. And I took my Muzzy broadhead and stuck it into a concrete block. Now the Muzzy broadhead stuck into the block. And I go up there and the broadhead and half the insert is stuck to the block. And the other half the insert and the shaft are laying on the ground. The shaft was broke back about an inch. The broadhead didn't get hurt. I pulled the broadhead out. I still have it. I still use it. I don't even know which one it was nowadays because I couldn't tell the difference. And the shaft was good. Cut a couple inches off the shaft and kid's arrow. I couldn't use it anymore, but it's too short for me. But my son was 5 or 6 at the time in Cub Scouts, and all the arrows, we'd cut them all down and he'd shoot them for hours. And that's how tough the carbon is nowadays. And I've sent carbon arrows through steel, the commercial steel doors, up to the fletching. Just stuck them through, and with the field tip, of course. The broadheads probably wouldn't have made it quite so far because it's trying to cut a little bit too big of a hole. But I was able to send carbon arrows that didn't hurt the arrow at all. It's just finished pulling it through.
It's one thing you get in your setup, you can use anything. That's the good part. It's personal preference. It's what you like. Traditional archery to me is a heritage. So I'll probably hunt with wood arrows this year. Maybe not if I use that AMAG because it's a metal riser bow, so I might stay a little bit more modern with that. But my Canterbury custom or my new woods bow, I'll probably shoot wooden arrows out of those. They're wooden bows. It's just kind of that old nostalgia thing of doing it the old way, the hard way.
Yeah, go back to the primitive method, and you know what? It worked 64,000 years ago, and it works still today. So,
Exactly.
What can you say they did 64,000 years ago that they're still doing today?
Not a lot.
Yeah, and not much. Yeah. In a history of archery, and in the process of looking up for one of the podcasts, I just did a whole series on just the history of it, talking about archery. And I was able to find where they had found evidence of archery equipment that are 64,000 years old, is what it dated back to. So that was kind of interesting that it was that old. And the other thing I also discovered is in fairly modern times, I think back in the 60s, the military had a platoon that shot recurves. And they did a demonstration, and they set a box up filled with dirt with 3 sections, I think it's like a normal foot wide box or something. They put it into 3 sections, and they shot it with a 45. They shot it with a carbine, M1 carbine, or an M1 Garand and a carbine. So you got your 45 calibers, you got your 30 caliber, and you got your 30-06. And then they shot it out of a recurve with a broadhead. Now, guess which the only one that went through the whole box?
Had to have been the bow.
Yep, the broadhead penetrated through the complete broadhead, and part of the shaft was sticking out the other side of the box. And the .6 only made it to the second section.
Wow.
The 30 carbine made it into the second one, and the 45 didn't even pass through the first section.
It's pretty unbelievable. That's
Yeah.
a good piece of trivia to have, actually.
Yeah, it's like, okay, a broadhead, a 12-foot of dirt did not stop a broadhead.
It's pretty impressive. If you think of all of the game animals that people hunt that are taken with a simple stick and a sharpened piece of metal, it's amazing. I've seen archery hunts on television, obviously, taking an elephant with a bow, and it's just amazing to me that someone could actually do that.
Well, and then too, some states allow you to hunt with spears.
Yes. I watch,
Eh,
there's a forget the guy's name, but he does it pretty regularly, has his own channel and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool to watch him. You know, he was somewhere in Africa, I think, and actually took a coup out of a tree with a spear. It was pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, that takes a little bit. It's a completely different skill.
Yeah. I think my
It,
next
it,
up to try an atlatl and see how good I am with it. I actually have a friend that built one, so I just haven't actually made the dart and actually tried it yet. But that's on my list of things to do this summer is actually go someplace that has enough yardage that we can actually try it out and see how it works.
that'd be kind of interesting. They had this last summer, I helped out in Nebraska has their outdoor expo, and I went up there and helped out in the archery stuff. And there was a guy that had a setup there. I was busy, helping out with everybody else shooting the archery, that I didn't get a chance to go up there and do that. I think this next year when I go up there and volunteer for it again, I'm gonna go try one of those just to see. And they had axe throwing and just different stuff. I've never gone out and thrown an axe and try and hit a target with it. And I normally try to keep the axe in my hand, not let it leave.
Exactly. A couple of years ago, we were at Compton at the Compton Traditional Bowhunters Rendezvous over on the west side of the state, and one of the vendors, I might have been Three Rivers, I think, or one of them actually had an atlatl there that you could take and go try it out. That was actually pretty fun. The line was so long to do it that I was like, but I probably should.
Yeah, sometimes you get a real long line. It's like, I'll try it later, and then the line never goes down until they close. And
We were talking earlier about things that you recommend for other folks to do, and if you're thinking about getting into archery, find one of those rendezvous that's local somewhere in your area and actually go. Um, Take a friend with you, go by yourself, however you decide you want to do it. But there are so many vendors there. They're all super helpful. You have all these different bow manufacturers there, and they literally have inventory there for you to actually take it off the rack. They hand you some arrows in a glove, send you across the way to the range, and let you shoot anything that they've done. That'll help you make that decision if you don't have someone that that has a lot of bows that you can try out. Um, that'll help you make that decision on where you should start.
yeah, and that's what you gotta try them. And when I had the store, they'd come in, try a bow. You could shoot every bow in the store if you wanted. Now, I didn't recommend shooting all of them because if you shoot right-handed, you really don't want to shoot left-handed bows or vice versa. But um, we'd set them up. The only thing I recommended was only two at a time,
Right.
because I had one time I had like six of them on the floor trying to figure out which one to like. And finally I got down. It's like, okay, I'm going to hand you a bow. You're going to shoot with your eyes closed and tell me which one you like better and why. I didn't care the why. I just wanted to express it. So I give him one bow, he'd shoot it, and you want to set them up all about the same weight and the same draw length so that you don't really notice a difference that way. And so I'd shoot one and then shoot the other. Which one do you like better? Well, I like this one. Why? Okay, so I'd set that one aside, and now I give him two more. Pick one, and finally you narrow it down. Is okay, like this one the best because he said, "Why you like that one best?" That's the bow, and that's what you got to do on a lot of these is just shoot them.
Right. You
And
just find the one that you fall in love with. It just fits you. Um, when I ended up buying my Canadota custom, I went to the rendezvous at Compton, the run west side of the state, and I knew that Pat was going to be there, and he had a whole rack full of bows, and he just said, "Take them and go shoot them." And that was like the second or third bow of his that I shot, and I just came back and said, "Well, I think I'm going to take this one home." I mean, you just know, right? That's the one that fits. That's the one that. And that bow is, I mean, from what I shot back then to now, that bow was 4 or 5 pounds higher in draw weight than I would have normally ever shot, and it was just comfortable.
Yeah.
The whole plan was that I was going to have him build me a bow, but I shot that one and I didn't need to have him build me a bow. It was already built.
Yeah, already on. And one of the things that, I like them to do is like, put it in your hand. How's it feel? Whether it be a recurve or compound, it doesn't really matter. Put it in your hand. How's it feel? Now, if you don't like the way it feels, then put it up because you're not going to like to shoot it. You get them that like it. I like the way this feels in my hand. Okay, let's go shoot it. Grab this. I like this one too, the way this one feels. Let's go shoot it. Figure out which one you want. And that's the nice thing about this. We can shoot them all day long. It's not like a gun where you shoot it and the ammo's gone. We just go pull arrows and shoot them again.
Let's go throw your arrows out of the target and go back. Start
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, you can shoot them multiple times and until you break them, or lose them. And that's about the only way you really get rid of them. Eventually, if you shoot them enough, they're going to fatigue and then you need to change them out, but especially with aluminum.
Right. I have some aluminum arrows that I've had since the early 90s, probably, that I still shoot. The anodizing is worn completely off. They're just aluminum. There's no paint left on them.
The old game getters.
Yep.
Yeah, we've wore the silver off the front of many game getters. That for those listening who don't know, a game getter aluminum arrow, they're anodized with a green coating over the aluminum. And like I've done, and my brother's done, and you have done, and Tom has done here, as we shoot them enough, and you're wearing them out, put them in a target, pull them out, shove them in, pull them out. Eventually, you're going to wear off that anodized coating, and that just means you've shot that arrow a whole lot.
Should be paint testers for Easton.
Yeah. Okay, which one holds up the best? Now, I normally shot the XX78s, and I don't think I ever wore into the camoing off the XX78s. Game getters we did, but I don't know if how they're different. But
that's what I shoot out of my training wheel bow is the XX78 Super Slam.
Yeah,
still got 3 or 4 dozen of those arrows still fleshed up from, I think, the last time, other than when I picked that bow up just to see if I could still shoot it. They've been in my case for probably, my daughter's 26, so probably at least 24, 25 years.
Yeah, I don't think I have any. I might have a few of mine left, but I've switched over the years to carbon, and I've wrecked many of them. The XX78 Super Slam, when you Robin Hood them, they're kind of cool looking. How they kind of it's not just a split; it's kind of a kind of almost like a spiraling
like
square wave. Yeah, a little square wave. It looks like. Yeah, they're kind of interesting when you Robin Hood one of those. The carbon's a little bit different. And I actually had a little demonstration of some Robin Hoods with some different carbon arrows, and it's amazing the cheaper ones how far they penetrate, as opposed to the better quality. They don't penetrate as far. It was interesting how some of the cheaper arrows just penetrated so much more, and the one I had was done at 70 pounds at 20 yards. So it was, about the heaviest that most of them were going to be shooting anyway. And
I have 2 of them that are fairly recent, the last 4 or 5 years, that are the gold tip traditionals, and they, out of a 47-pound recurve, they went in probably about 1.5 inches, just past the tip, because the tips I shoot are pretty long. But it's a 510 grain arrow, and it stuffs it in there pretty far.
Yeah, I always shoot the bullet points, which are a little harder to do a Robin Hood, especially when I shoot in the aluminums. And as you know, the XX78s have that unibushing, and I would bust so many knocks, and then I'd have to pull the unibushing out because that got bent. And when you actually stick one, because those bullet points are, those that are listening that don't know, the bullet point is a real flat angle on them, just barely in a point, where your combos and field points come to fairly sharp points. So if you get fairly close, you have a little variation. well, when you have a great big old fat bullet tip on there, yeah, you got to be perfect on them. And I've gotten a few of those, and I've gotten I got two of them when I was working at Cabela's, and another one I was working at the Bass Pro, and it's kind of interesting, what you're doing. Uh, both of them I got when I was at Cabela's. One was with a bow that come out that was recalled because nobody could set it up. I shot 2 arrows and Robin Hooded, my second shot stuck inside of another one. And manager comes like, here's what our guys can do with this bow. What's the problem with it? And the other one was actually a customer's bow. And it was actually right-handed, which was nice. I was putting on a drop away rest because he couldn't group with it very good. So he couldn't group. So he wanted to drop away. I'm not figuring it's the rest is the problem. And so I put the drop way on, and those that don't know, but when you have put a drop way on, you have to shoot them to see if they're going to work. And so I shot an arrow, drawn another one, shot another arrow, stuck 2 arrows together. And of course, when the guy come in and said, I can't group with that bow. I wanted to say, well, I hate the bow, dude, it's you, because I just stuck 2 arrows together. I shot twice and stuck 2 in the same hole.
When I shot on the men's unlimited league at Arrowhead years and years ago, the man who actually did it was the chief of the fire department in the town that I live in, and he actually did one back to back. So we had 3 arrows stuck together during a men's unlimited league on Wednesday night. It's the only time I've ever seen that happen.
So you're Robin Hood at a Robin Hood.
Yep. The guy's name was Jeff Hill. He was the fire chief in the town that I grew up, or the town I lived in.
Yeah, now that is definitely a feat, because you can't normally say, okay, I'm going to stick these 2 together, because there's not many that are good enough that can do that. But there are some out there that are that good that they can hit them knocks and stick them in the other one. But to do a Robin Hood on a Robin Hood,
it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is definitely a trophy to keep.
He elk hunts a lot in Colorado, and he had, I don't know, 2 or 3 different elk mounts there at the archery shop. And he ended up, that thing hung up on one of his elk mounts until the day they closed the doors for good on that place. As just a nostalgia piece that he actually did it there in that range.
Yeah. That's definitely a conversation piece. It's like, okay, when he tells you how to shoot, well, can you do that? How many have stuck a Robin Hood with a Robin Hood?
It was super.
Yeah, it definitely gives credibility. He's trying to teach somebody how to shoot. And of course, not necessarily because you can shoot good, can you teach? And just because you can't shoot as well doesn't mean you can't teach. There's, as an instructor, I always like it when my students outshoot me. That's always good. It's like, when they get where they're out shooting you, then that's always a good thing. And I know it's always interesting when you teach somebody how to shoot. They get excited, and then they're shooting. And I've told this story many times, but I had one guy come in, wanted to buy a high-end bow, never shot before. 2 weeks later, he's got a Robin Hood.
Nice.
That's because I would teach everybody how to shoot when you get a bow. Comes with shooting instruction. Because last thing I want to do is get somebody out there, like you, what the one guy was talking about earlier. You give him a lesson and know how to shoot. Then they're going to stay in the sport, because that's what we want. We want people to get into archery and stay in archery. Some of us get in it for a while and then out and then back into it, but you want to be in it and enjoy it. And that's the whole thing is, get people to enjoy archery. And, that's the
owner. You get those people that you didn't teach them, and then you get bad press. And it's always the bow's fault. It's never the operator of the bow's fault. So
right.
That makes it bad too. So helping and teaching them how to utilize a piece of equipment properly is the best bet for sure.
Yeah, teach them how to shoot. If you're open to be, for instruction and willing to put in the work, an archery instructor that has got any kind of experience at all is going to make you a better archer. And that's what I say. if you're open and coachable, willing to put in the work, I could make you a better archer. It might be down to tweaking, little bitty details that, a good archer, it's like, you watch your video, watch it, and it's like, oh, try this. You're doing this. One little bitty tweak can make a difference. Now, on beginners, when we all started out, everything was off. So it's like, oh yeah, what can we fix the easiest that makes the most impact? And last time
Yeah,
drawing.
we actually bought some inexpensive GoPro knockoff kind of cameras, and if we're not shooting well for whatever reason, just a bad day, or we've had 3 or 4 nights where after work we go out and shoot, we just are stinking up the place. We'll actually set those up on a tripod and video ourselves and shoot, and then try to pick up, instructing ourselves, because you can't actually see yourself shoot. So we
Right.
video it so we can actually see, and it's actually helpful. We've done that. I have a really, really long draw length, and I got 2 worn out shoulders, and it just, I wasn't getting my elbow parallel, and it was throwing off the shot just that much. So you start watching yourself, and it's like, well, you idiot, the reason that you're not shooting well is that you really aren't at full draw. Your elbow's still 4 inches higher than it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It does help to actually do. So that's another tip, right? Is that if you're shooting bad, find somebody with a cell phone and have them videotape you for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I know. I do a lot of YouTube videos, and I think just about all of them, I've got over 500 videos on YouTube on various subjects. On my YouTube channel, I have Learn to Fix It Yourself was the name of the channel. And I think almost every one of them is recorded on my cell phone.
Yeah.
And now I'll edit them, with the software I have on the laptop. But I do them there. But the only thing I do on my laptop, which I've got a Logitech 920 camera that I use, because the laptop camera is blurry on a good day, at least on my laptop anyway. And I record the podcast on there, and I do a few things on here, but most of mine is done on my phone, because it has, my phone has actually got slow motion capability, super slow motion capability, wide angle, a panoramic view. I don't use all those just because when I'm doing, I don't really need them. I can zoom in and zoom out while I'm doing them. I can take the camera, move them towards me and away from me. And, when I first become an arch instructor in 95, our option was to use a VCR and record you and then play it back.
Right. I remember doing that, actually.
And when I first learned, the guy had a VCR camera that he would record stuff we're doing so we could look at it, but it wasn't, instantaneous like we do on the phone. And now, with the phones and the internet, and you can actually teach somebody anywhere, just by in the video. And we could even, you could even set up and be shooting, and I could be watching you shooting, and of course record it, and then we can always play it back later. But I can watch you shoot. It's like, oh, try this, and we can correct things just wherever you're at.
Yeah, virtually, it's like a virtual archery lesson.
Right. Actually, my very first online student, which is in the group now, was a guy over in Italy. Didn't have any coach next to him. He says, "Hey, let me coach you for free. I'm thinking about putting together an online coaching program." And so he'd record a video. I'd watch it, maybe give him critique, watch it, just kind of go through, then making them better. And I've actually done a video one with a guy, and he was in Italy. The other guy was in Canada. The podcast, it's all over the world. You're in Detroit, and I'm in Ithaca, Nebraska. And we're communicating just like we're here. And that's just so much, easier now than it was back before, because in order for us to meet, I would have had to go to Detroit. Right. And we'd have had to be in an event together. And or you'd have had to come here and be in an event. So the chances of us meeting, back when, I started, was kind of slim.
Right. I mean, with most people in this industry, the only place that everyone's at the same place at the same time is the ESA.
Yeah. And now you can watch a lot of the shoots at these big events, the Lancaster ASA or any of those big shoots, they're recording it now. So you can actually watch them. Sometimes you can watch them live depending on how they had it set up or watch the replays. And just watching somebody shoot, sometimes you can pick up a lot and say, what are they doing? And then how do you learn on yourself? And one of the things that I do when I was doing a lot of 3D shoots and my form, it just sometimes just something feels off and you couldn't figure it out. So what I had is I had a string that had a loop that fit around my thumb. That was my draw length. It had a loop on the other end. So I could hook my release to it and I could practice shooting. And if that string didn't jump from my hand straight to the target where I was aiming, my form was off. So then I could fix my form. And it's like, okay, now my form is going. Because when you're at a 3D shoot, you have a time between when your turn to shoot and everybody else's turn to shoot. So if you're not doing good, you got a little bit of time between. If you're shooting last, you got time. If you're shooting first, well, something didn't go right. So figure it out for the next one. And I imagine you could use something like that. You could probably use that for recurve, except you'd have to have a little bit bigger loop so you could put your fingers on it and draw back and then just work. And it still needs to go off your hand straight. Because if you're not going straight to your target, those that see, I just got to push my hand towards my camera. If you're going off to the side, you're throwing your arrows off.
That's actually a pretty good idea. I'm gonna have to try it. After this, I'll be making up a string so that I'll keep practice without a book.
Yeah, and I when I had my store, I had a great big roll of string loop material. It's a camel string loop material, and I made a loop. I have enough of that. I'll never use it all up because you're only using 4.5 inches at a time.
Right.
So I had plenty I could use for that, and I don't know what happened to it. My string disappeared someplace, and it's not in my rig, so I'll have to make me up a new one. But that's the way you can practice without actually shooting your bow too. And I've seen these rubber things under pressure, but you're not working on building the muscles. You're working on the technique. Is your hand position right? Is your arm got bent right? Is it going towards the target? Extending to your target. And I see some try and lock the arm out. And what I've seen when everybody tries to lock the arm out, push the shoulder up. And then what happens is all the pressure goes in the shoulder and all you tend is drop it down. Now you're a little stronger. And I actually had one of my podcasts, one of the earlier ones, I actually had a physical therapy doctor in, and we talked about shoulder injuries. And, a lot of old archers have shoulder injuries because they've, been holding the bow, shoulder too high. And you probably, bad form. No matter what you're shooting, bad form is not going to do you good.
I actually got kind of a funny story. I actually got hurt at my real job and tore my shoulder up pretty good. And after I was able to actually use it, archery was my rehab.
Yeah.
So they would actually pay for me to go to the range and shoot 3 times a week for an hour. My workman's comp, it was the greatest thing ever.
Oh, not that you got hurt was a great thing, but it turned out okay. And you just start with a light poundage bow and work your way up.
And I started out, I think, with a 25-pound woman's compound bow is what I actually started with, and worked my way up from there until I could actually shoot my own bow.
Yeah, I know one guy come in and he hadn't shot before and he had a bow and he was shooting and he come in and says his wife commented that his back muscles are getting stronger and bigger, because you're using those back muscles that you never use.
Right.
When you're drawing a bow, you're using muscles that you never use for anything else.
It's true. I know when I shoot a lot that my upper neck muscles are really, really sore for whatever reason. But there are weekends when the TT2 crew all get together at my house at 5 o'clock on a Saturday evening, and we'll barbecue and and get out there and start flinging arrows. And the next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock at night and we got spotlights out there and we're still shooting.
Yeah.
Next day, you can't pick your arms up, but it's still fun.
Yeah, it's still fun. And, there, with your shoulders in there, sometimes, you might be drawn back with your shoulders up just a little bit high. Who knows? That's something you'll have to figure out. It's like, are you drawing your shoulders too high, or are you, draw down? But I've seen people draw across their chest and they're just using their arms, they're not using their back muscles when they're doing it. And you see all kinds of, like, the weird forms or strange forms or improper form. However you want to look at it.
Yeah, my favorite is the guy who holds his bow almost over his head and then pulls down and pulls it back and then gets on target.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen some of those where they go real high and they pull down across their chest and then like, quit, drawing too much weight or something, because you shouldn't be able to do that. I always like to adjust the weight, and probably, adjusting the weight on, you really don't adjust the weight much on a recurve, but picking the right weight. I always had them with the compounds. If you can slowly draw back, pretend like a deer is out there and you have to slowly draw back. If you can't slowly draw back straight to your anchor point, if you have to do all this gyration, that deer is going to see you, it's going to run off. You have no meat in the freezer because you just spooked it off. So if you can't slowly draw back to your anchor point so that you can be stealthy in your draw, you're drawing too much weight. The same thing for the recurves. If you can't draw it back with a smooth motion, if you're going there and struggling, start shaking, and you can't get it all the way back, you might need to get a little bit lighter bow to start with and work up to it.
I mean, and if you start out and you've never shot before, and you start out with a bow that fits you and is comfortable, and you really enjoy it, and you shoot a lot, you'll, within a year, you'll probably move up several pounds, probably at least 4 or 5 pounds in draw weight pretty easily if you shoot a couple, 2 or 3 times a week. And there for a while, we were shooting 200 arrows a night, 7 days a week.
And shooting a lot of weight can really wear you out on that. I know my first bow, we had it set at 52 pounds, the compound. And, I want to increase the weight. It'd go up to 70. But I was at 52 pounds and I'd shoot for a while and then I'd bump it a little bit. And I got to like 58, 59, 60. And it was just a struggle, to go any further. And then I got up to 62 finally. And then once I got to 62, then I could go just real quick step to 70 after that. But it took me a long time just to add 10 pounds to my draw weight. And, a lot of shooting in improper form. I'm going to tell you right up, it was improper form back then, because that was in the 70s and 80s. And I didn't know nothing about, shooting technique. It wasn't until mid 90s when I even started hearing about, back tension release. And, back then I was like, well, how do you know what you're going to hit if you don't know when you're going to pull the trigger? And then I figure out, oh, okay. You don't want to pull the trigger because you don't know what you're going to hit.
That was one of the hardest things to learn how to use, with the back tension release.
Yeah. No, I don't actually. Yeah, I don't actually. Yeah.
To a trigger release and then going to actually a back tension release. That was the hardest thing ever. I punched myself in the mouth a lot of different times.
I don't actually use a hinge back tension release, but I shoot my handheld as well as my wrist release with back tension. So with the wrist one, I put my finger behind the trigger because the last thing you want to do is pull that trigger. And I go to people, put your finger behind it. It's going to be hard to get it behind it because it should be so short. And a buddy of mine, he went from fingers, finally went to a release, and he smacked himself in the mouth. And he says, the release, it failed. It failed on me. It went off. And I says, no, you pulled the trigger. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. Because it's not going to just go off. You pull the trigger, you have your finger in front of it, and the process of pulling back, you touch that trigger, it goes off, and what do? Your hand's coming back towards your mouth,
Exactly.
and you smack yourself in the mouth. So I said, okay, put your finger behind the trigger this time when you draw back, and it won't go off.
Right. We used to try all these genius ideas of we would loosen the tension up so that you just barely breathe on it, it would go off. That way you weren't punching at the trigger, you weren't going to throw yourself off, and inevitably you end up punching yourself in the mouth every single.
On mine, I have mine set. I've got a Carter handheld. Chocolate Addiction's the brand, the model number, and I have the heaviest spring in it that they make. I don't want that trigger to have go off on the slightest pressure. I want to put some pressure on it so I can start drawing back. And my son has another release that's a lighter trigger. I can't shoot his because as soon as I put my finger on that, start a little pressure on it, it goes off on me. It's like, ah. Now,
Yeah.
on my firearms, yeah, I like the lighter triggers.
To be able to breathe on it.
Yeah. Like, and I shot on a rifle team in high school, and we had to have a 1 pound trigger pull was the minimum we could use. And most of them were, set up for 3 pounds or less trigger pull, but we're not hunting with it, so it's target, and we don't want a hard trigger pull because that throws us off. But on archery, I want the hardest trigger I can, and even with the wrist strap, I want that to be a hard trigger. I don't want movement, but I want a hard trigger. And neither one of mine are set with any real travel in them. As soon as I feel the travel, then I start thinking about the release, and I quit aiming. And that's why you don't want to pull the trigger. Is if you're thinking about the finger to pull the trigger, what you stop doing? Stop aiming. So what are you going to hit? You don't know because you stopped aiming.
Right.
Now, you don't you have some of that with the recurve. If you're thinking open your fingers, now as you're thinking about open your fingers, you're not aiming anymore. So you just have to relax them as you're pulling through. And so there's a lot of similarities in it. The execution is a little different, but it's still the same basic concept.
Still flinging a stick down range with another stick.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. You're just making that stick move.
Yeah, I used to use a Carter, either pinky or thumb rope release, and then my hunting bow I used a Scott Mongoose, and we would mess around with it. Finally, I just set it back to what the stock adjustment was because I got tired of punching myself. But now you just got to make sure that your finger stays on the string.
Yeah, and you don't want to bury your finger in too far. With the release, we want them on the second knuckle back, but you don't want your string there. You want your string up on that pad on the front. Now, where do you put yours? Do you put it in between the knuckle and the tip,
Right.
or right at the first knuckle?
You can see the wear of my glove. Mine is usually about halfway in the pad, just probably a little bit closer to the first knuckle, but it's between the first knuckle and the center of the pad. It is just the way that I got really long fingers, so it's really just the way that it lays out in there. But I've tried all different kinds of gloves. I finally, American leather is one of the gloves that I use, and they're super durable. I had a PSE King glove that I actually used for over 25 years until they finally wore holes. And I went to a bear paw that when we were shooting a lot, and I mean, we were shooting 200 to 300 arrows 7 nights a week. And Saturday and Sunday, it could have been closer to 500 to 700 because we'd shoot all day. Started having problems with ring finger going numb and all that kind of stuff. So we tried, Kenny and myself, we invested and bought a bunch of different gloves and actually tried different ones to see which ones would help with the whole finger numbing situation. Got that thicker padded bear paw glove was pretty good. And then he actually bought a Hill style, and the finger cots are super, super thick. So you don't get that string feel, but it does kind of help protect you a little bit. So if you shoot tons, probably a heavier glove would be better. Um, I have one that I use in the summertime just because it's hot, and it's actually made out of kangaroo, and it's really thin, super slippery. Um, but it's just thinner, so your hands not all sweaty and nasty in that glove when you're out there shooting this 95 degrees on a Saturday afternoon. But there's all different products out there. That that American leather is just my go-to for whatever reason. It's just a really, really good glove. They actually make them with a Cordura pad for wear. The one I have is called the Cross something, and it actually has a double layer of leather in the finger cot pad instead of the Cordura.
Yeah, that's
It's
kind of thing, that the ring finger is what goes numb. So even if you had extra padding just on that finger, that's why I went to release, because my ring finger would go numb, and it didn't take many shots because the axles are getting shorter and shorter, and you can't shoot them with fingers, and too much finger pinch. And now a lot of the new ones are so short that you could not shoot them with fingers. You couldn't get two fingers on them, and they have to be shot with a release. And that's what's nice about the recurves in longbows is you don't need all this fancy equipment.
yeah,
You can to put on the no gloves. You don't need any glove. um it does take a little bit of wear on your fingers. Your fingers got to get used to it, but when you're as old as I am, you don't have much feeling in your fingers anymore anyway, so they don't have sensitivity like they did before. And like when I'm tying on a loop or something, you have to burn that end of that, and I just use my finger to tap it. And like, my feels like burn. It's like, yeah, I don't feel it. I've
yeah.
done it so much, it's like I don't feel it. Now,
Well, that
normally I
feels
use like the
insane.
lighter because it can get a little piece on there, but when you're burning strings for making your string, I just use my fingers on them because it's not really hot. But I've got the lighter in my hand. I'll tip those and then kind of tap my finger afterwards, and um, they kind of get desensitized to that kind of stuff, but they'll still go numb.
Exactly.
But it's been really great talking with you. I know you've got a lot that you've been helping out people with, and archers out there. And um, we didn't get into any of your hunting stories. Uh, what's some of your exciting hunting stories you've been on?
Haven't been real successful, so I'm not gonna lie. It's where we hunt. There's not a lot of deer in that particular area, so we, you know, the success is not as good as it probably should be. It's property that we have access to, so that's kind of the situation. But it's I think my own perspective of that is it's just the camaraderie, right? We get together, we go north, hang out, go hang out in the woods, chase deer. Um, doesn't matter if you kill one or not. Usually, it's just the trip up there, getting away from the everyday grind, and just going and spending time in the woods is the most important part to me.
Yeah, that there's something to be said, going out there and doing that. If you get a deer, that's just definitely a bonus to get out there and have some meat for the freezer. But there's been many times, I went out and didn't get anything, and other times you come back with two.
Right. Yeah, we've had some unfortunate circumstances at the property that we hunt. Property next door got purchased, and the guy kind of messed up our deal. So we've been spending the last few years trying to get that all fixed up. So hopefully he's now gone, and maybe we'll be more successful this year.
You never know when the property gets sold. It just kind of all, you know, up to the new owner, how things go. And
Yeah, the people that live there now are pretty decent. So I think we'll be fine. It's just now we just got to go back in and fix what got broken, and it'll be all right though.
yeah, well, that's one thing, we're willing to help out too. If the farmer or landowner needs something, hey, let us know. And I've had some, it's like, hey, I knew they was going to put in a pond or something. It's like, let me know when you're ready to put it on, come help. They never called.
Right.
Never said anything, but we offered, and if they'd have called, we'd have went. And that's just one of those things. You'd bring them a gift or something, and you bring them some meat if they like the deer or whatever. I know the one place I was hunting, I went up and got a moose, and I brought them over some moose steaks to have. I didn't get it on their property, but they let me hunt, so I
Right.
brought them some, and just the one place I'd get him a ham or something, because he didn't really want the deer, so I'd hand him a steak, and get him a ham, and get him whatever he liked to drink, and just, hey, get him something for Christmas. Just something to just to say, I appreciate being able to hunt here.
Right. You got to take care of them landowners so they'll let you come back.
Well, and the farmer, they've got corns or soybeans or alfalfa, a lot of the corn. The deer eat so much corn, and we're glad to be able to go help them out with eliminating their deer problem. I've heard guys tell me it's like that the deer would swim across the river over from Iowa over to his place at night, and they'd swim back during the day because he didn't allow hunting across the river and over here. So, I've heard stories where the farmer just like sat there and spotlighted them at night and just shot all of them that come over, pile them up and burn them because it was costing him thousands of dollars. And, it told the one guy I was talking to, he says, like, shoot it all you want and tag whichever you want. But I'm going to shoot one, I'm going to tag one. I'm not going to shoot them and let them go. But, that's why, they have deprivation permits. But when they're only coming through at night, they're not there during the day. What do? They come eat your crops at night and go into safe haven the next, in a different state. So it's not like you could go hunt over there,
Right.
especially when the farmer, they didn't allow any hunting. So, it's kind of safe haven. And how do you get them over during the day? And it's like, that things you have to run into. And, that's what happens when you are hunting next to a property that doesn't allow hunting. Things you have to deal with, and hey, you just figure out a way to do it. And I've got one property where they come through mostly at night, although I did find on the cameras in April or February, they were there in morning and night during the daylight. Like, okay, now I'm catching them during the daylight. Now I know where I might be able to catch them during the daylight, because that's coming through 10 to 2 o'clock at night where they'd come through.
Yeah, the place that we hunt in central and northern Michigan, we put out cameras, and all the activity is mostly at night or early in the morning before daylight. The deer that we do see there, we usually see them right at dark. Even when you get them into, 13 to 17 to 20 yards, it's dark. So even shooting a recurve, it's still legal shooting light, but just barely legal shooting light. It's in with that last couple of minute window usually. Still cool to watch them though. And we've sat there and had to scare them out of there so that we could actually get out of the blind and go at dinner.
Yeah, I've had that a couple times too, where they're come in and it's dark, because I don't like to get down right away just in case they're coming in. I'm
Right.
done hunting. I got my bow hanging up because it's past shooting time, so I'm not going to shoot. And they'd come in, and like I can hear them walking around. I can't see them, so I know they're there because I can hear them walking around. And it's like, and you're caught standing there, and you got to move once. So then you move and make a little bit of noise, and then they run off, and then you wait a little bit, and then they get down and leave. But you hate to spook them too much, because then now you're educating them.
Right. Exactly.
I've
Yeah.
also had
Sometimes
the
they
other,
just,
yeah, I've
yeah,
also had the
sometimes they
opposite
just pop up.
situation too. Oh, what was that?
Yeah, sometimes they just pop up out of nowhere. I remember it's probably 2 years ago. It was dark and we were getting ready to get out of the ground blind, and you grab your backpack and your bow and you're getting ready to sit up out of your chair, and there's a deer 5 yards in front of you that wasn't there when you look down.
Yeah, they do that. They'll come in and they're so quiet, all of a sudden they appear, and then other times they make all kinds of racket.
Right.
Yeah, you think it's an army coming through, and no, it's just one deer making all kinds of racket. Yeah, it's you never know. You got all kinds of stories that we can tell, hunting, and that we get so close to them sometimes, and some of the critters don't even know what you are, and they're just land on you. I've talked to guys that had birds land on them. Haven't had any land on me. I had them land, within range. I could kick them with my foot. But I've had other guys is they just land right on their shoulder.
And was hunting in Milan, Michigan, which is kind of south of Ann Arbor-ish area, years ago, and I had a big old sow raccoon come down the tree directly behind me when I'm sitting in a tree stand. That was a little unnerving. She
Yeah.
came right down right behind me. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, at least they didn't walk across you.
Yeah.
That might have hurt digging the claws into you.
Right. Thank goodness she didn't. I'd have probably just fell out of the tree at that point.
Yeah. Well, in parting, what would you say to somebody that's looking to get into archery?
So my advice is find somebody that has the passion that can show you the right way. Make sure that you don't outbow yourself for your first bow. Just because you shoot a 35-pound bow doesn't mean that you always have to shoot a 35-pound bow. But I've found by shooting lighter poundage bows, it makes you a better archer because you learn how to do it the right way.
Good advice.
You don't learn bad habits. Overbowing yourself makes you learn bad habits. Usually also gives you a big old raspberry on your forearm. But that would be my key advice is to find somebody that has the passion that can teach you the right way, and make sure that you get a bow that fits your body and not your ego. Start out small and slow, and eventually you'll be able to work yourself up to a higher poundage bow. And there are people killing deer right now with 35, 40-pound bows, so it's not like it's a 35 or a 40-pound bow is not going to get the job done anyway. But there are state regulations some places, so make sure if you do decide that you're going to hunt somewhere that you at least meet the minimum requirement if you're going to try it, just to protect yourself.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're within the legal limits, because if you're below that, then yeah, that's not a good thing to happen.
Right.
Because the rangers, they don't care. It's like that's the laws, and you get a copy of them or have access to a copy before you get your permit, and you're expected to know them. And just hey, and if you're not sure, you know what? Call the game wards and say, hey, this is what I got. Is this legal for me to shoot? And they'll tell you, yeah, it is, or no, and if no, then what do you need to change? And
Right.
and they'll let you know. All of them I've talked to have been real friendly. As long as you're not doing something illegal, they're friendly. And ask them, just ask them. It's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. Can I do this? And they'll tell you yes or no. And if it's no, then you can ask them. It's like, okay, what do I need to change so I can do this?
Another thing to remember is that archery isn't just deer hunting, right? You can bow fish like you do. You can small game hunt. You can stump shoot. You can target shoot. You don't ever have to hunt anything. Archery is a sport that it's very versatile. You can do lots of different things. It's really fun.
Well, and what you fling that arrow at is up to you. As long as it's legal to fling it at it, then go right ahead.
Exactly.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of it as well. I every time I talk to somebody, I always learn something, and it's a lot of fun doing this. And for those that want some more information, you can get a hold of us, or you can go out there and join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. There, we have bow technicians as well as instructors that can help you anywhere from shooting the recurves, the compounds. If you're not sure how you're shooting, take a video, upload it to the group, and we'll give you some pointers. No cost for that. Just take your time and enjoy. So I'll leave links to get a hold of TT2 Archery in the description, as well as how to join the archery group and anything else. And we have a lot of information for you, and we enjoy bringing it to you. My name is Roy Canterbury, and I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101 with our special guest, Tom, on the line with us. Thanks for being here.